Welcome to Monday Afternoons with Vish. Prime time with Vish. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Vish Kumaran. And we got a lot of Niner stuff to talk about. As always, breaking news. We have a lot of Niner stuff to talk about. I promise I'm never going to say that at the beginning of a show again. I'm going to think of better things to say. What I want to say is, in the news, Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford. I just want to know what Vish thinks. That's what the nature of this show is. So, Vish, what do you think of the report that, if it is a report, that the Niners would be interested in Kirk Cousins if he were to become available in a trade?
Okay, so this has kind of been shut down, right? Like Ian Rappaport went on Pat McAfee's show and said, I don't think so. And then Javi Vega posted on Twitter, and it's a good interview with Matt Mayoko and Sage Rosenfels, and they talk about Kirk Cousins, and Sage Rosenfels basically kind of dismisses the idea that he thinks that Kyle would no longer be obsessed.
Just so people know, Sage Rosenfeld says, it's my opinion that I don't think it's the best fit anymore. Yeah. And that's basically what Rappaport said as well. Not that he heard it, just it doesn't sound, and that often means that they heard it, but they didn't phrase it that way. That's all I'm saying. And the report is some guy with like 6,000 followers. So it's all very flimsy.
Right. And with Rosenfeld, just another thing to keep an eye on is, when I listened to him talk about it from that context, what I gathered was he had been talking to Kubiak rather than Shanahan. And from talking to Kubiak, it felt like he didn't have the best opinion and was gathering the best opinion of Kirk Cousins, which would then, his speculation was basically that if Shanahan spoke to Gary Kubiak now, he might not be as enamored with Kirk Cousins. That was his final conclusion. But it's out there, so let's talk about it, right? And so, in my opinion, this is not going to happen. With Minnesota, I just don't see how they can trade him. I don't see what their plan is if they trade him. I don't know what they would do because they got this veteran team that they kind of just retooled, and they have picks and everything, but I don't think they're at a point where they can just press the reset button. They can maybe do that next year with Kirk Cousins or the year after. We'll see, but I just don't see this happening. In terms of his fit for the 49ers, I would say that you got to look at him as he would be a Ryan Tannehill for them. I don't think he's as good as Ryan Tannehill, but I think that's the guy you got to think of, where really good executor of the scheme, goes to the right spot with the football most of the time, if not all the time, can make every single throw that's necessary for this offense. Really good off play action. Just a really solid player. To me, Ryan Tannehill offers more in terms of how athletic he is and his arm, but Kirk Cousins is a really solid player. And yes, in my opinion, he would be an upgrade. I know the reservations everybody has, and I have the same ones when it comes to Kirk Cousins. You never want to see a franchise level quarterback, especially a guy like Cousins, who's been a top 15 type quarterback the past 5 years, get ripped by teammates for absolutely no reason. You know, there was the Stephon Diggs. Adam Thielen ripped him after a Bears game last year, and he publicly apologized. Kind of a weird thing to do. And then just a couple weeks ago, Everson Griffin took 2 gratuitous shots at him like that. Kirk Cousins wasn't in the conversation. He wasn't playing. It was during Wild Card Weekend, and he just decided to string off 3 tweets about how Zimmer doesn't like Kirk Cousins. He doesn't like Kirk Cousins. Nobody likes Kirk Cousins, and just went at him that way. So for those reasons,
also, there's more. His personality is big, but there's also the fact that, and it's the same thing with Stafford. I think Stafford and Cousins are very similar because they both have big arms. They both can execute, but they both are guys in their early 30s that have this long track record, whether it's their fault or not, of not winning against winning teams. Not winning in prime time, not winning against winning teams. They both have losing by bad records against winning teams. And it's like, it may not be their fault, but if you're moving off of Jimmy to bring in a new guy, you're moving off of Jimmy so you can win the big one.
Right.
And you have these questions.
In my opinion, those are things people sell to fans. I don't believe that because I think you have to look at each individual game. You can't generalize a sample size. You know, you got to look at different games. Like I've seen Monday Night Football games where you can look back and say, well, Kirk Cousins really did nothing wrong here. And
You're right. Hold on. But before you just write it off, Kirk Cousins is 8-36 against winning teams, and Matthew Stafford is 10-66. I mean, that's a bigger sample size than Jimmy Garoppolo's entire career. So there's something there. I'm not putting it all on them. Obviously, Stafford's played for a terrible franchise, but these are questions you would have if you were to bring these guys in, like,
sure,
is there something there?
Sure, I see. I don't like
big
that.
Sample size.
In my opinion, I'll just speak from my own
1066.
personal standpoint. I don't really like taking that into account. I don't really like that because, like, you take a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo. He had a 2-0 playoff record prior to the Super Bowl, completing 16 passes and throwing 26 passes. So it's like when you look at stuff like that, taking wins and losses and taking it away from the quarterback, like, you got to isolate every single variable and just look at the quarterback. So I don't think it's fair to do that to Kirk Cousins.
I just think it's amazing that Stafford is actually 64, 24-1 against winning teams and 10-66 against losing teams and 10-66. That's amazing. But we're not talking about Stafford. Okay, look, I agree. Cousins is a better player, even though Cousins has this weird thing where he doesn't win on prime time and doesn't beat winning teams, and it's not all his fault. You put him with Shanahan. I think he's a better player than Garoppolo, not just because he's more durable, but because he's more physically gifted. He has a stronger arm. He's more accurate. His mechanics are better.
Smarter.
He's a smarter player, and he's more mobile. He's a better player. He's a lot like Stafford.
I think,
He's a lot like Stafford. If you like Stafford, Cousins is kind of similar. He's not as gifted. I mean, no one's really as gifted as Stafford except for Allen, but the guy throws a nice deep ball.
I think the one detail that's the big difference between Stafford and Cousins is from the standpoint of Cousins kind of has been able to fill in, especially the last 4 years or so, into the system that suits him, right? The system that suits him and the system that he can be best at. And I think he ceilings out as a quarterback that's somewhere 13 to 15 in the NFL, and that's exactly where he is right now. And he can ceiling out only in this particular system, which is the Kyle Shanahan, the Gary Mike Shanahan system.
Yep.
And he had success early with McVay running this system. He had success with Stefanski. He's had success with Kubiak. So in my opinion, with Stafford, he's not been put into a quarterback-friendly, I mean, everybody calls this a quarterback-friendly, it's quote-unquote quarterback-friendly system because a lot of the throws and process is schemed up in this system. So because of that, I don't think Stafford's ever been put into such a situation. But this isn't to compare Stafford and Cousins. The bottom line is I think Cousins would be an upgrade, but is Cousins worth trading a couple picks for when you have Jimmy Garoppolo? I don't exactly know that. And it's because, we've had to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo every single time I've been on here, and I've been mostly critical rather than flattering. But, Jimmy Garoppolo still is a solid player. He's still a good quarterback or an okay quarterback that you can win with. And for that reason, I ultimately think that, he, as good as I think Cousins is, and I think he would be an upgrade in this system, I don't think he's worth trading any sort of money. You seem to be having kind of.
I'm sorry. I was looking at Matthew Stafford's career splits, and they're all messed up. But I'm looking at him year by year, and yeah, I mean, he can do play action. He's better with play action. He doesn't get to do it very much. It's a really good point. Kirk Cousins is like a product of a system and a play action. And the whole idea is Stafford has never had any of that. Put him in that. But again, Stafford's career QB rating is 88. Cousins is 97. Maybe in this system, Stafford gets bumped up to about that level or maybe a little bit above it. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying.
That's always been my point. Because there's similar level players right now. If I was to rank the 15 best quarterbacks in the NFL, they're going to fall very close to each other. If I started ranking them, I think Stafford would be about 12 or 13 and Cousins would be 15. But in my opinion, you put Stafford in McVay's system, Stafford boosts to 8 or 7 or 8 and Cousins still stays at 15.
All right, let's focus this Cousins discussion real quick before we move on. Do you think that there's a regardless of what Rosenfels and Rappaport said, do you think there's a possibility here? Do you think this is something the Niners should pursue? And what's the price?
Look, unless the price is where it's just you trade Jimmy and you're trading a 4th round pick or a 5th round pick, I'd do that. Because to me, Jimmy plus a 5th round pick is equal to Kirk Cousins. Or Jimmy straight up for Kirk Cousins. I would do that.
I'm good with that.
But if it's trading anything beyond that, absolutely not. I don't see why it's worth it. And, I just don't see with Kirk Cousins the enamoration where you to me, Matthew Stafford, from a physical standpoint, you see a ceiling that you can never hit with Jimmy. To me, Kirk Cousins is kind of maxed out his capability, and that capability is being better than Jimmy Garoppolo, but not by enough for me to say, hey, let's just trade the farm and go get him because Jimmy's the problem. So let's just trade Jimmy in a second and go get Kirk. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm with you. Before we move on, no, don't do that. And again, I want to talk to Kyle. Kyle, don't trade for Kirk Cousins unless you can trade Jimmy Garoppolo straight up. Don't do it because I sincerely believe it'll get you fired. You're going to give up picks you shouldn't give up. Your fan base is not going to be excited. They're going to be mad. And if Jimmy Garoppolo has any success and Kirk Cousins continues to be Kirk Cousins, you're going to be in trouble. Don't do it. Resist the urge. Put the Kirk Cousins down. Is that fair, Vish?
Yeah, I agree.
Say that. Don't do it, dude. I know you want to. Don't do it, Kyle. Not you. Dude is Kyle. Kyle is dude. I talked to Kyle. Kyle's my dog.
I got it.
He's my dog. Real quick, Sonny, thank you so much, Sonny. He really likes. So hold on. Let's not dismiss this. Kinlaw, Jimmy G, 2 firsts, 2 seconds for Deshaun. I see where you're coming from here. Kinlaw was a first-round pick. Jimmy G used to be considered a franchise quarterback. 2 firsts, 2 seconds is a lot. Vish, how close does that package get the Niners to Watson?
I mean, if that was the package for Deshaun Watson,
yes,
given where the division just went with Stafford, Kyler Murray, and Russell Wilson, I would 100% do that. I just think that that's way too little for Deshaun Watson and what's going to end up happening. And I'm just not sure that throwing Jimmy G in one of these deals is going to just make it happen, just because I think teams ultimately look at his contract and say the Niners can get off of him and we might be able to swoop him in for 14, 15 or 10 to $12 million, which is a big, big bargain for a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Vish, I want to stick with this topic because Sonny was so generous, and I do think the Deshaun Watson topic is interesting and what basically interests Niner fans much more than Kirk Cousins. I think Niner fans are like, wait. Can we come back to Watson for a second? Because he's a way better quarterback than Stafford, and what exactly will it cost? So, I mean, that's not the question I want to ask you because we don't know. What I want to ask you is, do you think the Texans ultimately trade Watson this year?
I'm not sure yet. All I know, and this is my prediction with it, I think it's going to reach a point where it's going to get ugly first. And it's going to be someone not showing up, someone losing communication. I don't think the Texans are just going to play the route of, all right, you know what? He wants out. Let's just get him out of here and decide what we're going to do next.
Let's be player friendly so more players like us down the line. That's not what the Patriots are like. And remember, this is a Patriot satellite organization.
Not to mention what Bob McNair's comments have been said in the past. Those things set a culture, and I'm sure there's other people in that building that believe.
And remember what he said is, we don't want the inmates running the asylum. So that's basically whatever. Yeah, the inmates running the prison. So if that's their mission statement, then they're not going to give Deshaun Watson what he wants. So what I think, I mean, I don't mean to speak for you. Do you think that this could drag into training camp?
Yeah,
start finding him.
And Big Golden Nuggets, your super fan, my guy, said it best in the comments. The Texans are going to test him. That's what I think is going to happen. They're going to see how willing are you, Deshaun Watson, to sacrifice paychecks.
I agree. So this is going to get ugly before anything happens. I wouldn't be surprised if he's this principled and he feels like this aggrieved and oppressed. He'll retire and he'll become the next Colin Kaepernick. I'm out.
Carson Palmer.
I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to play for this organization. It's a racist organization. I'm out. He might do it.
Carson Palmer.
He seems like he's principled about it. Carson Palmer, except even with a bigger axe to grind. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he actually retires for a couple of years, which would be terrible for the NFL. It'd be awful for the NFL. Roger Goodell, if he's watching, make sure you call Cal in Houston and make sure that doesn't happen because that's going to hurt your product. From what I heard, Roger Goodell was actually working very hard behind the scenes to get Kaepernick back in the league. And these owners are just, I mean, you think of the league being a big organization. In a lot of sense, it's 32 teams and New York. I think it's in New York's interest for Kaepernick to be back in the league. It's good publicity. It makes him look good. It's a lot of people watching. It's just money all around. It's great. But it's like, which team is going to do it? I don't think clearly no team wants to be the one who, I don't know what you would call it, takes on the risk, whatever it is two different interests working there. And I don't know how I got to that topic, but let's move on. real quick. Maybe not real quick. 49ers first take says, why are the 49ers afraid to move off Jimmy, unlike McVay, who manned up and cut ties with Goff? Niners play it safe. Should we just go to our poker analogy right now?
Yeah. I mean, we can go to that right now. This is,
I think we can.
Yeah, because it's funny because Grant came on, obviously, my YouTube channel. Thank you, Grant, for helping us out, starting that and everything. And we did a topic on like 2 days on Friday of last week, right? And we did a topic of how would you feel about Kyle Shanahan if he doesn't move off of Jimmy this offseason? And you look at McVay, and part of my gripe is I'm one of the biggest Shanahan fans out there. I'm a Shannahan, if you will. I really like Kyle Shanahan. I'm so happy that he's my coach. I think manned up is a little harsh, but I think I get the gist of what you're trying to say is that Kyle has kind of rode the fence with Jimmy Garoppolo since 2018. The reason Jimmy Garoppolo is such a topic of conversation, not just with Grant, not just with anybody, any national reporter when it comes to the 49ers, is because they always get this feeling that, well, the 49ers got his contract organized in a way that they can move off of him, and Kyle Shanahan has his reservations. They get that feel from him. And yet Kyle Shanahan has had opportunities to move off of him, and he's yet to take them, and he's kind of rode the fence that way. Well, when you look at
McVay, won't extend him, they won't move off of him. He's very expensive. It doesn't make sense.
You look at McVay, right? And McVay, we brought this up, I think, like one of the first times I came on your show, I was like, well, look at how McVay handles Goff. He's yet to complain. He coddles him. McVay does as much for Goff as Kyle does for Jimmy, if not more. And he's always coddling him. He's always protecting him. He's always defending him, blah, blah, blah. Well, this year, something snapped for McVay. McVay just decided that this is not for him anymore. He did the Wolf or Goff thing with the thumb. And you know what? I guess it got to the point where they basically tanked his entire value and said they weren't interested in keeping him as soon as they got into the offseason. McVay just decided, okay, I'm done with Goff. I'm just going to send him out of here, and I'm going to figure out what to do with the next quarterback. And he upgraded at the quarterback position. And so when you look at something like that, it's not that I take anything away from Kyle, but I do really respect Sean McVay's kind of, okay, this didn't work. This is not working for me. I'm not going to keep trying to make it work. I'm going to move off of him. It's like something I wish Kyle Shanahan did with Dante Pettis, you know? Sure. Dante Pettis, it didn't work. Why embarrass Dante Pettis by sitting him during the Super Bowl? Why embarrass Dante Pettis by having him have a pretty good game week 1, and then week 2, he doesn't play a snap, and week 3 he's inactive? Why do those things to him? Why not just cut him, move on? It doesn't matter if Dante Pettis is successful somewhere else. It's about whether
skip the doghouse. The doghouse is irrelevant. Skip that. If you don't like him, move on, dude.
That's the New England Patriot philosophy, right? Bill Belichick could care less if a player has success away from him, if that player is not fitting what he wants him to fit. And so for that, I respect Sean McVay and for having the conviction.
The thing about I respect McVay too, but he hasn't won the big one either. And it's fair to at least poke fun a little bit in his method. Now, he didn't trade up for Jared Goff. That was Les Snead. That's his right-hand guy. That's the GM there. They traded 6 picks to move up from 15 to 1 to get Goff. Then McVay and Snead gave them this Mondo contract. Not like the one the Niners and Parag gave Garoppolo. A Mondo a nuts contract, like he was Tom Brady or better. Aaron Rodgers. And then he's the one that now trades 2 firsts and a third to get rid of him and bring in Stafford. That's 9 picks for one position, and you don't end up with Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers. You got Matthew Stafford, and that's great, but that's the best you did. So to me, I put a tweet out last night saying if Sean McVay were a poker player, he'd be the dude at your weekly game who goes all in on the first freaking hand, loses, and realizes he's got a long night in front of him of no poker, so he buys back in with maybe his wife's credit card and keeps playing. Very aggressive, loses a lot, keeps coming back in the game. Maybe he ends up winning, but spends like $500 to win that pot. What is Kyle Shanahan in this analogy?
Yeah, so I saw this analogy last night, and we're going to get into McVay and Les Snead a lot more because what they've done with the Rams is just totally unorthodox. But to go with the poker analogy, right? I saw this last night, and I called Grant when we spoke this morning or this afternoon before the show. I was like, I really like that analogy, but I looked at it a little differently. So I looked at McVay and Snead as the people at the poker game. Anytime they have a semi-decent hand, they push their chips to the table and go all in. And if it doesn't work, they just buy back into the game. And anytime they have a semi-decent hand, they go all in again. It's risk it, biscuit.
Yeah.
To quote Bruce Arians, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, they're the people that regardless of their hand, they throw in a little feeler bet every single round. They never fold, but they never go all in.
They call.
Right, they call. And for that call, right, every reporter has confidence saying that for every single player, the 49ers are somehow connected because you know that the 49ers will make some sort of preliminary call.
I raise it $2.50.
Right.
Yes.
And it's just match the bet. Maybe throw a dollar in there, just see what happens. You know, when I play, I only play $20 buy-in. So
just increase the size of the pot a little bit, make it a little bit more expensive for the other people who lose.
Right. Yeah. And you know, it's not to say like they've had, I guess, similar amount of success from the standpoint that they haven't won a Super Bowl, though I would argue that the 4 winning seasons McVay has had thus far are phenomenal, and Kyle has had quarterback injuries and other injuries that have kind of hurt him from that standpoint, but he's only had the 1 winning season that he went to the Super Bowl. It's just interesting how different these two teams are, yet so similar with their philosophies.
Well, when you put it this way, I think the go all in, bust, and buy back in, I like that better than the call, fold. Call, fold. I gotta say, I like the other way better now that you put it. But it's like they go all in like on 40% of their hands. It's like, oh, there he goes again. He's all in. Guys, they're all in. He's got pocket sevens. He's going all in.
I mean, God only knows how they just continue to go and do what they do. Like, it's impossible to explain. I know we're going to get into it a bit more.
Yeah, let's talk about it right now. So you were, I made people wait 20 minutes for your thoughts on Matthew Stafford. You were banging the drum for the Niners to get Matthew Stafford. It came this close, and now you got to watch this dude on a division rival for the foreseeable future, at least twice a year. How do you feel about that?
All right, so in regards to Matthew Stafford, I think he's going to be 100% successful with the Rams. Everything I've said about how he would fit with the 49ers and everything on how he would succeed with the 49ers applies to me in the exact same way with the Rams. So I think he's going to be really successful that way. I think from the Rams standpoint, when they started making these moves, right, we thought like let's just recap what the Rams have done. 2017 was kind of normal. They traded for Sammy Watkins. McVay has this great year. They go 11-5, lose a playoff game, and then bang. 2018, Jared Goff's third year, trade for Marcus Peters, trade for Aqib Talib, sign Todd Gurley, just all of these things to go all in, make the Super Bowl and lose. And we're all thinking they're going to now take a step back, blah, blah, blah. And, 2019, Gurley's not the same. Their offensive line is all hurt. Aqib Talib is done. Peters doesn't want to be there. Brandon Cooks' contract looks terrible. And we all think, okay, even though they had ended up having a decent season by going 9-7, they're going to take this step back. And then somehow managed to get a second-round pick for Brandon Cooks, cut Gurley, eat the dead money, trade Peters, then managed to trade for Ramsey. And when they traded for Ramsey, I was like, all right, this is where they went absolutely nuts. There's no way this works because there's no way they signed Jalen Ramsey. Well, lo and behold, they're able to sign Jalen Ramsey, come back this year, and have a very, very good team, make the playoffs, and win a playoff game. So I think from their standpoint, when they traded for Ramsey, they were already all in. There was no way to take a step back and retool. They were done because of Goff's contract the next 2 years. They were going to be done either way in terms of their flexibility. Now, what they did was they just went even more all in, and they said, all right, we're already stuck all in. Let's just go even more all in because it's better off doing this all in with Stafford than it is with Goff and maximize their chances for the next 2 years. What they do to me, it's everything I've read when it comes to football, everything I've heard, everything I talk to people and read, and just everything that I've learned about football in my 21 years of living is wrong. Everybody tells you that this is wrong. It's crazy. It's nuts. It's unorthodox. But you know what?
If you care about the future of your franchise, it's probably a bad move. But I just feel like they're feeling like let's just get this ring, and no one will fault us. We'll get the ring, and if the Rams are scorched earth in 2024,
who cares?
I'll have a ring, and then I'll move on. It's like we'll be like, this is really bad for the environment. You're going to ruin the ozone layers. It's all right. We're just going to go to the moon. We're going to go to the freaking moon. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We're going to blast off.
And it's just Matthew Stafford that the Rams have going on. I'm really interested.
I don't like it. I wish Sean McVay had manned up and gotten a guy on a rookie deal, because I think he's good with young quarterbacks. He can win with young quarterbacks. And when that team was in the Super Bowl, it wasn't just Aaron Donald and a few guys. They had these mid-level vets who were excellent. Brandon Cooks, Roger Saffold, really good players that left. And now the team's just pretty good, but it's very top-heavy. I felt they're paying Jared Goff $22 million in dead cap basically this year. Stafford $20 million. I mean, I guess they were stuck with paying Goff one way or another, but it's too bad they can't go cheap because they've proven they can do it. McVay's proven he can do it.
Okay, so yeah, obviously, this is who I wanted for the 49ers, right? And the way this trade unfolded, the way everything unfolded, this was not really an option for the 49ers, the way this happened, because the Rams just came in, they swooped in with a little too much. They went in my opinion, with a little too much. They went a little crazy knowing that they were stuck with Goff. And they just wanted to get rid of Goff. And to me, that's their biggest win. And I think it's going to be good with Stafford. And ultimately, because I think the bottom line and the way to sum up this move is it was a very good move, in my opinion, for the Rams, given where they were. This would not have been the right move for the 49ers, given where they are. And that's just the way to look at it. I'm sad, I am really sad that Stafford, I said this is the guy I wanted. Stafford came on the trade market. People were saying it was so close to happening. It seemed like it was going to happen. And then I find out that he's going to the rival team. Like, that one hurts a little bit, but ultimately it makes sense for the Rams. It doesn't make sense for the 49ers.
Real quick,
and I think that's the bottom line.
I agree that it makes sense for the Rams, only because of what I would say bad decisions they've made in the past. They left themselves no choice. And ultimately, I don't think it's going to work out for them. And I think McVay and Snead are going to leave LA without rings. But we're not covering the Rams, and we don't know. That's a prediction for 4 years down the line. Let's talk Niner implications. I agree. Once one team comes in with 2 firsts and a third and a player for Matthew Stafford, you're like, yeah, I'm nice talking to you. I'm going to close my flip phone that I use for negotiations, flip phones.
Right. And it wasn't even just that. Like, you go back and look at the offers, and Albert Breer's breaking them down, and you see Carolina offered 8. Like, first of all, 8 is going to be more valuable than either of the 2 first-round picks they're going to get from the Rams. Let's just put it out there. 2, you have to put up with the year of Jared Goff. Like, Jared Goff, come on. Yeah, and then 3, you get this 3rd-round pick next year, but that 3rd-round pick means nothing for the Rams because they're going to get a compensatory pick from Brad Holmes and a compensatory pick from Dante Fowler and a 4th-round compensatory pick from Corey Littleton. So they didn't really affect the Rams in that sense. I just don't understand. I wish Detroit somehow just used their brains and wasn't the Lions and really took the Carolina offer. And
can you explain to me why they didn't take the Carolina offer?
God only knows.
They wanted Goff that bad. They were like, hey, Carolina, we like your 8th pick in the draft, but you don't have a quarterback like Jared Goff. Sorry. We're going to have to go with the Rams.
So I asked this question on Twitter last night, and your guy, Jack Hammer, does a great job with your film breakdowns and everything. Really good, really smart. You should definitely follow him. He tweeted back at me and basically said, that that Brad Holmes was one of the people who was pushing the table and really saying that they need to draft Jared Goff. So there's a relationship and kind of a love affair with Goff that way. I don't know why it's with Jared Goff.
The last few days, I didn't realize that there's a Jared Goff fan club that still exists, but it certainly does. And I guess there's a Jimmy Garoppolo fan club that exists as well. But before we get to that stuff, I want to just answer some questions because we got a few donations that came in. I'm going to go through them quickly. The one before was Big Old Nuggets pointing out that the Rams are basically spending like half of their salary cap on 3 players. Is the NBA model? Is it going to work? I don't think so, but we'll see. I mean, they're going to have a chance. They'll be in the playoffs every year. It'll be interesting.
They're the one team I'm not going to count out because they've been doing the NBA model the last 3 years, and they have 2 playoff appearances, 3 playoff wins, and
they're very well coached. So he can fill in certain weaknesses that they have. I mean, they're very well coached, probably even better coached than the Niners, even though the Niners have, I would say, they're ahead of the Rams in terms of play design and offensive evolution. They're ahead of everyone except for basically Kansas City and New Orleans. Are those the three?
Basically. Probably.
Yeah.
New England, maybe.
Yeah, New England, maybe. All right. Although, McDaniels without Brady, I don't know. Okay, real quick, let's lightning round. Why do Niner fans overvalue first-round picks when the Niners' first-round drafting has been pretty spotty at best, especially when it first can get you a proven player?
Okay. Okay, people don't overvalue first-round picks. It's not just about drafting a player, okay? First-round picks are premium in terms of the flexibility they give you, and that's what people don't understand.
The currency.
When you have 10 draft picks in a draft and you're sitting there at pick 34 and there's nobody you really like at the top of the second round, guess what? You don't have to take a player. You can trade down. And you're sitting there at pick 37 and the guy you really want is at 33. Guess what? You can go up to get him at 33. Yeah. It's all about flexibility and going and getting people you want, whether it's through the draft, whether it's trading for players. That's why
and it's more than that. It's the fact that it's an inexact science to begin with. You're not drafting machines. You're drafting human beings who are going from being kids on an allowance to being millionaires, and you don't really know what's going to happen. So if your hit rate is 40% in a draft, you're doing good. So what you want is more shots, right? More opportunities. Yes.
Exactly. And that's the point. And, you see what the Rams are doing, right? And the problem with what the Rams are doing, and here's why. It's because I've always said it, right? My philosophy is that the NFL is a depth league. It's more about accumulating depth than it is about having high-end players. And, the Rams seem to be the one outlier where they seem to have success with their method right now. I still don't think it's a model for any other team in the NFL. And, the Rams, they trade 2 first-round picks, blah, blah, blah. What happens if Jalen Ramsey gets hurt? Who's going to back up Jalen Ramsey?
Gets hurt.
Yeah. So these are the small, finer, detailed things that, the Niners have had to deal with because all their star players seemingly get hurt. So they were stuck in those situations. And the Rams, who've had fortuitous injury luck and have had their star players stay on the field, and for that reason, they haven't had to deal with it, and they've been successful.
Hey, they look like a team that could really go far no matter who their quarterback was this year until Donald hurt his rib. Then, goodbye. See you later.
The Packers game is totally changed if Aaron Donald wasn't hurt.
Of course, absolutely. Sebastian says, how do we look at this in 2022 if Rams win the Super Bowl? Well, all of a sudden they redefine what's possible in terms of roster building. I just don't think they're going to do it. They're spending $42 million on their quarterback position. It'd be unprecedented.
Right, but if they win the Super Bowl, right, I still think it's an anomaly rather than the normal. And to me, it's going to be like the Eagles, right? The Eagles had that one anomaly year where they won the Super Bowl with this all-time spending and all that. Look at them now. It looks terrible. It looks pathetic. Yes. Everything they did looks so wrong, but they were able to get the one Super Bowl out of it. And teams tried copying that model. Like New Orleans kept trying to go all in and sign a bunch of people and all of that. And you see where that's gotten them. So I still don't think it's the sustainable way to have success in the NFL. And people are going to try it if the Rams do it because they're going to say the Rams did it. So why can't we? Well, the Rams did it when they have Sean McVay and 2 top 5 defensive players and all of that. So they would be an outlier to me.
And again, my conspiracy theory here is even McVay and Snead realize that this is not a sustainable roster building method, and they're going to pull the escape hatch in 3 years. That's what I'm saying. They're going to be like, eject, we're out. Good luck. LA Rams, hire someone like Dan Campbell. He will be here for 6 years and talk about changing the culture. Thatcher says, re-sign Bourne, good role player, cheap, great energy. All offseason, I was like, nah, he's going to get too much money on the open market. But now that I think about it, he's exactly the kind of guy who's going to get shut out this offseason. It might just come back, can I just get a 1-year deal for $2 million just to be in a familiar place and put up numbers and try again next year? I don't know. What do you think?
First, Thatcher, actually, Grant, he does logos. He did the logo for my YouTube channel, so definitely give him a follow. Yeah, he's
appreciate you, Thatcher.
Cool. Yeah, he does an excellent job. So that's one thing. And 2, I'm kind of with you. And the way I look at the receiver market, I'm having trouble seeing where Kendrick Bourne kind of fits in because there's like 8 or 9 very, very good wide receivers that are free agents this year. And I don't know who's going to pay them and where the money's going to come from. Like the Jets and the Patriots can't pay all these receivers. So who's paying the AJ Greens and the Marvin Jones, the guys?
Let's be honest. Like, how high on the Jets priority list would Kendrick Bourne be?
I don't think very high.
I mean, he's cool, but he's not going to be on the number one. He's not going to be any team's number one priority. Kyle Juszczyk probably be higher on a priority of the Jets than Bourne. So I actually think they might bring him back. But little side note, we were talking on the phone. We ended up not going with this topic, but someone brought it up. Is there any other wide receiver who might become a free agent this offseason who knows the system?
Yeah.
The Niners might be able to get for a cheap price.
Yeah, I think Emmanuel Sanders is the guy to watch out for. I think he's going to be a cap casualty in New Orleans. I mean, it's already been reported that he's going to be that. And I think that he had a very positive impact when he was here. I'm a big Emmanuel Sanders fan. I've been a fan for a long time. I think he's a pro's pro. And I think he's mastered all the subtle nuances to play the receiver position that not a lot of guys have mastered. And for that reason, I think that he would be a really good person to bring back as a veteran, as a guy who can be a deep threat, as a guy that, you know, you have Ayuk and Debo, but you still need a guy that on 3rd and 5, game on the line, trust him. You know he'll get open, be at the right spot, and make the catch. And Emmanuel Sanders has always been that guy, and he'll continue to be that guy.
And also, you don't know what you have with Debo Samuel. He was basically MIA this last season. You're expecting he's going to have a bounce back year, but you don't know. Also, Brandon Ayuk, great rookie year. How many rookie wide receivers have we seen take a step back their second year just because they thought they had it all figured out? Doesn't mean they're a bad guy, just the sophomores. So, yeah, bring back Emmanuel Sanders if it costs you $3 million. Be a hell of an investment. And absolutely. I think what we're telling you is, and I've been mentioning it on this channel for the last couple of days, but there's going to be a bunch of guys who get cut that the Niners should be looking into. A lot of teams, you think the Niners have problems with their cap? $30 million in cap space is like a gold mine in 2021 because a lot of teams are like $100 million over. New Orleans.
The Niners have actually managed this the best of the good teams. The so-called good teams, they're actually in the best spot in terms of keeping themselves viable and comfortable and flexible. These other teams like the Rams, the Saints, all these other teams are really in terrible positions. And for that reason, I think there's also going to be a lot of Coach Johnston. You know, you brought him on here. He's awesome. He DMs me too. And he and I were talking about, you know, hey, like post June 1st, because you can clear a lot of cap, there's going to be a lot of cuts of some very, very good players. And the Niners can basically
a lot of trades quarterbacks too.
Right. And the Niners can basically go down the clearance rack and say, oh, Jason Kelce, the Eagles cut you because they didn't have money. Brandon Graham, the Eagles cut you because they didn't have money. Two guys in positions that the 49ers need that are still very good players. Like
that's the smart play this year. That's where you want to be shopping, not mid-March. The Niners going to probably have to sit out mid-March. You try to re-sign Trent Williams, but June 1st, that's when the Niners get involved. That's when the Seahawks will get involved. That's when the smart teams with a little bit of cap space will get great bargains, like Pro Bowlers who want just a 1-year. Hey, man,
I will say one thing, though. Those veterans like that usually get cut, usually want to go to the splash team of the offseason. And the Niners got to make one move in this offseason that gets them in that conversation for the splash team.
Which leads us to Martin's question. What happens if Watson forces his way into SF? Can he decline all of their offers? He can decline all their other offers and could possibly end up with the Texans taking less for Watson. We addressed this earlier. Go ahead. So what do you think?
Yeah, so this is I'm not going to dismiss this as a possibility, but what I'm going to say is this is not something that would happen in a month. This would be a process for this to happen this exact way that you've outlined. It would be a process that gets outlined for 4 months and 5 months, and finally they just give in to Watson. It'll get really ugly, and if the 49ers are willing to wait and be patient and play this ugly game, then sure, yes, what you just outlined is a possibility.
Yeah, but again, try to think this through from the point of view of a 25-year-old who has zero ties to San Jose. All right. Where would you want to go?
Miami?
San Jose?
Miami.
It's just, so maybe Deshaun Watson one day will be like, you know what? I got to leave Houston and I have to go to Santa Clara because, look, I love Great America. It's one of the best theme parks in America. Drop Zone is it's just my jam, and I got to go there. Probably not. Although if he's been to Drop Zone before, it's very scary. It's 32 stories, Vish. Have you ever been on something like that? 32 stories is high.
No.
So Watson, something to think about. But there are probably good theme parks in Miami as well. Andrew Mayberry had nothing to say. He just is a really generous person. Thank you very much. And Jay just might have said something. Hold on. Yeah. James says, what do you think about the Niners taking position of need in first round and drafting Trask or Mon in the second round to sit behind Jimmy G for a year? It's a great question. Vish, what do you think about going quarterback in round 2 and need in round 1?
I think this is the likely scenario right now. I think this is what's going to end up happening. And I think that's because Chris Ballard, if you saw, he gave an interview and they asked him, Chris, when are you going to go get your quarterback? And he said, well, it's not about going and getting your quarterback. It's about going and getting the right quarterback. And I think the Niners are going to sit there at 12 and be like, well, Fields, Wilson, Lawrence gone for sure. And we're not going to sit here and not take the quarterback that we don't absolutely love unless they're just enamored and smitten with Trey Lance, okay? And if that happens, then things change. But else, like we saw them at number 2 with no quarterback, nothing, and they felt that they weren't smitten with Mahomes, Watson, or Trubisky, so they went the Solomon Thomas route. And I think that they'll end up doing the same thing. I guess they'll be contented with Jimmy Garoppolo, and then they'll come back and try and get a guy that they feel they can develop in round 2 that they feel has similar upside or similar value to somebody they could have gotten at round 1. That's exactly how it happened in 2017, where they loved CJ Beathard, right? The comparison for Kyle was Kirk Cousins. Unfortunately, that one didn't work out, and Solomon Thomas didn't work out. Let's see if it works out better this time with that model.
Yeah, this draft is reminding me a little of the draft 10 years ago, 2011. There were a lot of quarterbacks that went top 45, I think 6. And I think this year, to me, Mond is giving me a little bit of Colin Kaepernick vibes, that guy you can get at the top of round 2, mid-round 2, who, if you sit him for a year and he's in the right place, he just might make it as a starter.
Mac Jones and Trask or Andy Dalton.
Yeah, they're right in that Andy Dalton area. You got Cam Newton would be Justin Fields. Trevor Lawrence is definitely Ryan Tannehill, maybe a little bit better. Zach Wilson could be Jake Locker. I was going to say Mac Jones could be Jake could be Christian Ponder. I don't know, but there's some interesting parallels there. Of course, history doesn't repeat itself, and this really is not a discussion worth having. So let's have a different discussion before we move on to some Jimmy talk. Let's talk big picture. Let's rank the quarterbacks in the NFC West from best to worst, just so we understand where we're working. So we are on the same page.
All right. So, I mean,
let's go one by one and have a little discussion.
You want to go from 1 to 4 or 4 to 1?
Oh, no, 1 to 4.
1 to 4.
Yeah.
So 1 is Russell Wilson for me. He had a really rough season this year. There were a lot of problems with this play. I think that he had a lot more to do with Brian Schottenheimer being fired than people would like to say. This let Russ cook thing is a sham. I think there's a reason that the Seattle Seahawks have played the style of football that they've played the last few years, and it's made sense because Russell Wilson, as good as he is at doing certain things, there are some certain limitations where his height does make an impact and his process is a little flawed. And for those reasons, he does have limitations. Even with that being said, he's a top 5 quarterback. He's proven he's done it. He's still clutch as hell. And with Russell Wilson on your team, you have a shot to win 10 to 12 games every single season and win your division. And so for that reason, even though he had a down season, though 40 touchdowns, 13 interception doesn't look that way, you have to really look at the context of the entire season. I'd have to say that he would still be the number 1 quarterback.
Let me say I agree, and why I think he had a down season, quote unquote, and why the whole let Russ cook thing was a sham and why it got Brian Schottenheimer fired, essentially, is the whole idea of more passing for Russell Wilson. It sounds great because he's a hell of a quarterback, but they have a terrible offensive line, and they've had it for years. And what they try to do is, like the Niners, is try to bring in run blockers and have like some kind of a run game. But when it's time to drop back and pass, Russell, you're on your own. You're quick, you're fast, you protect yourself. Well, he's about 32 now. He's not quite making 3 pass rushers miss in the backfield and throwing downfield the way he used to. I mean, he used to be able to do that. I saw him in the playoffs this year. He looked like he was getting smacked around by the Rams, and he just doesn't have that ability to make guys who were much younger than him miss anymore. And so you're going to need to like either give him an offensive line or give him a run game. He's not just going to be able to like be Kyler Murray and be a superhero, even though he's better than Kyler Murray. He's 32 now.
Yeah, and then number 2, so you're asking me to basically pick between 2 guys people have told me that I'm overly positive about in Kyler Murray and Matthew Stafford, and I'm going to take Kyler Murray because of his legs. I'm going to take him because of his legs. And I think that makes a big impact. And for whatever reason, we have this culture where we don't include quarterbacks' running stats and the touchdowns that they get with their legs. Like somehow a passing touchdown is worth 15 points and a rushing touchdown is only worth 6 points. But guess what? When Kyler Murray has 26 passing touchdowns and 11 rushing touchdowns, that means he's accounted for 37 touchdowns. 37 touchdowns in a season. That is phenomenal. I think that his shoulder, that hit he took, I didn't think he was the same ever since he took that hit. I think there are some questions, with Kyler Murray, the way he sees the field, his mental process, Cliff Kingsbury's lack of creativity, and
he's still improving. Yeah, he's in the league.
Of course, and Cliff Kingsbury isn't very multiple with what they do on offense. It's the same set of like 5 different route concepts for short passes, couple quarterback runs. It's really overly relying on Kyler Murray's really special.
That pass where like all 5 guys run a curl. It's like, you got him there, Cliff.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's really relying on hey, Kyler. I don't really got a good play here, but if you could just run around and get 20 yards.
I have no idea what I'm doing, but you're gonna make this work.
And it's overly relying on him because of that. And I think their weapons, they have D-Hop. Outside of D-Hop, I know Larry Fitzgerald is a Hall of Famer, but he's slower than a lot of the more athletic offensive linemen in the NFL these days.
Christian Kirk is a total product of Kellen Mond. I mean, he's okay.
Nah, he's pretty good. He's pretty good. But they drafted so many receivers, and a lot of them have been misses. Their run game is nothing really. I thought it was one of the better things about Cliff Kingsbury 2 years ago. I didn't see that level of creativity with his run game last year. So that's that. And so ultimately, I'm going to have Kyler Murray second, though I think it's him and Stafford are right neck and neck. But
the argument for Stafford to be second would be experience. That's it.
I think with Stafford, though, too, even as one of the biggest Stafford fans out there, I'd have to say that prior to Matt Patricia getting fired, he wasn't playing his best football. Once Matt Patricia got fired, Stafford just took off like a rocket and started playing the way he was playing at the start of 2019 with Darrell Bevell, those first 8 games where he was playing like maybe the best or second best quarterback in the NFL. So maybe there was
make fun of Cliff Kingsbury, but Kyler hasn't had to play for Matt freaking Patricia.
True.
That's a different.
But ultimately, I got to take the legs into account, and Kyler Murray is just a little dynamo. He's awesome, and so he's, for me, the second best quarterback.
Okay, so number 3, Matthew Stafford or Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm curious. What are you going to say, Vish? I don't
want to do this to Jimmy Garoppolo because, he's the quarterback for the team I really like. I like him. I really like Jimmy Garoppolo. He's solid. He's from Chicago. There's so many connections, but come on, it's Matthew Stafford. And it's because there's another physical dimension to Matthew Stafford that Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't have. We're talking about one of the greatest throwers of the football ever. We're saying when we rank arms and we say Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Dan Marino, Matthew Stafford is right there with those guys when it comes to talent.
Sure.
And I think he's that good. And I can't wait to see how he looks in McVay's offense. I think that a lot of the analytics guys have been down on this move because I don't think they realize that a lot of their analytics stats get really, really boosted up by anybody who plays with Shanahan and McVay in their offense because the offense itself is so efficient. Of course, the quarterback's going to be efficient in it. And so for that reason, I think a lot of the small things that people have been kind of picking at and hating on with Matthew Stafford now are going to really go away. And then the other thing with Stafford I wanted to say is if you want to know how good a player is, instead of listening to how the media covers him, because I think the media has been awful at covering Matthew Stafford, listen to how other players talk about Matthew Stafford. Other players talk about Matthew Stafford like he's the Hall of Fame quarterback nobody knows about and that he's as good as anybody they've played against. And they say he's really smart. He's really tough. That arm is really that special. And so I think he's going to be awesome. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe not this year, but next year, or maybe even this year, he's in the MVP conversation. I think he's that good.
So you're saying the Niners have the worst quarterback in the NFC West? Wow. Wow. You'll just say anything for attention now, Vish, huh? You're just wow. You're just a Skip Bayless of journalism now. Okay.
Unfortunately, I'm not even a journalist, so I guess I'm the Skip Bayless of talking from your bedroom while being a college student. But yeah, it's unfortunate. But yeah, the Niners have the fourth best quarterback in the division. And, I don't know if there's a lot they can do besides getting Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers to not have the fourth best quarterback in the division, because it's more
Cousins ain't going to change that.
Right. It's more about how good the other three quarterbacks in this division are. And, Jimmy Garoppolo, it's not that he's bad, right? We keep like having to talk about him. And I feel like we talk about him too much in a negative connotation. He's solid. He's fine. The reason we've always had to have that conversation is because he can get better than him. He can get better too. And Kyle Shanahan always says he has reservations because of the reasons we always outline. But, he's solid, really nice release, good throwing motion. For the most part, accurate, short to intermediate. I mean, this season he looked like a guy that lost confidence. Maybe he regains it next season if he's the Niners quarterback.
To me, he's a 28-year-old developing quarterback. He still isn't what he needs to be or could become. He turns the ball over too much. He doesn't see the field well enough. Like, he's like Kirk Cousins. You look at Kirk Cousins, you're like, yeah, that dude is the best he could possibly be.
Right.
Jimmy isn't the best he could possibly be. I don't know if he'll ever become the best he could possibly be, but he's frustrating in that way, in my opinion.
Right, because there are moments with Jimmy, and I think that's what people really clasp at, where you see something that's a lot better than what he currently is. But the consistency
is just 28, and he still has like 40 career starts or something crazy, like theoretically, but no.
I at some point I just got to look at what he's been since he's been here, and he's been consistently a pretty average player, which is one of those guys that's a tier 3 guy, and there's nothing wrong with being that, because he's a legitimate NFL starting quarterback, and he should be one of the 32 starting quarterbacks next week 1, and nobody will have a problem with it. He's definitely one of those guys for sure, but it's just there are some questions with him otherwise, but I think he's good. I think he's solid. But, at this point, you got 3 of the more physically gifted quarterbacks in the entire league in your division. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Niners do. I don't think it's a knock on him, because I think there's maybe 20, 22, 21 quarterbacks that would be number 4 on this list when it comes to ranking these 3 in the division.
Yeah. And with Jimmy, you can live with his picks. You can live with the bad Jimmy moments, and there's 2 or 3 a game. You can live with it. But what you can't live with is him being in and out of the lineup, on and off the field, hurt, not hurt. Can he play through it? Is he 100%? Is he going to be better next year coming off the injury? How many? You can't have that. At a certain point, he's just got to be full systems go.
I'm still waiting for the magical Matt Ryan second-year leap that everybody told me was going to happen. And granted, it's funny because the thing is, I've always had a consistent opinion on Jimmy Garoppolo, and it's been this. And I don't look at it as myself hating. I look at it myself being a fan, but also being realistic. And the unfortunate reality is, I always think, and I thank my lucky stars that I didn't meet you, start talking to you, and start doing Mondays with Vish a year ago, because everybody would hate me. Everybody would have called me the Jimmy Garoppolo hater. You don't like him. You don't do this.
It's true. You would not be a fan favorite right now. I said last year before the Minnesota playoff game with my dad, I actually think Cousins is better. People let me hear that for months. Dude, are you kidding? You jumped the shark on that one. So sorry to cut you off, but you're right.
Yeah, and so I thank my lucky stars that we're at that point. And it's when you want to prove a point about Jimmy Garoppolo, sometimes I think people go the extreme. So either people go the extreme by praising him too much because they really like him and they want you to look at him that way, or they go the extreme of saying, well, look, he's so bad because it's just not fitting into people's heads what he actually is. And what he actually is a solid tier 3 NFL starting quarterback that you can win with. That's the reality of what he is.
I think we did a great job ranking the quarterbacks in the NFC West, and I don't think anyone can disagree with us. I was going to put Stafford over Kyler, but you swayed me with the legs argument. You're right. And the fact that you said it, I was like, yeah, I didn't think of that. I wasn't going to even factor that in. You're right. So, yeah, absolutely. And he's still getting better. I'm not sure that Stafford's getting better. His situation got better.
Right.
But I'm not sure that he's getting better.
Right.
We got a bunch of questions. Let's roll through them as quickly as possible so people get their money's worth. Brian says, what about Dak? Has anything been revealed about his recovery or anything snarky from Jerry Jones? Is he a realistic possibility as a permanent option? I think it's an interesting question because theoretically he could become an unrestricted free agent and he's good. But I don't think that's, I mean, what do you kind of, how do you?
He's not just good. He's excellent. He's a top 10 quarterback. He is very good. There's no doubt about it with Dak Prescott. Here's the problem. Here's the two problems with Dak Prescott. One, even if they don't get that long-term deal done, there's no way to me that he's not franchise tagged. So let's say he's franchise tagged, it becomes bad blood. Niners got to give up 2 first-round picks to get Dak Prescott. And here's the biggest problem with Dak Prescott. You got to pay him from year 1. So that means your 2021 cap hit with Dak Prescott is going to be something north of $35 million, which is just something the Niners cannot stomach. So even for that reason, I think the 2 first-round picks for Dak, I would actually prefer if it was 4 first-round picks for Deshaun, because at least Deshaun's 2021 cap hit is light and something you can fit into your salary cap right away and look to win with. With Dak Prescott, it would take a lot of adjusting, maybe moving a couple players around to make it happen. So I really like Dak Prescott. I would love to see him as a quarterback for the 49ers and not with the Cowboys because I hate the Cowboys. But I just think this one is way too far from being a possibility.
Right. So what you're saying is it would cost at least 2 firsts in a $40 million a year contract?
Yeah, it would be something north of $35 million in 2021, his cap hit.
It's tough. Jesus says, do you believe the Niners will build around offensive line if they decide to go with Jimmy G?
So you said will, right? So he asked will. It's not do you think they should?
Will, yes.
Yeah, will. I'm going to say no. I think they're going to stick with something similar to what they've been doing, maybe get a little better center. But I think they're more contented with the play of Mike McGlinchey than Grant Cohn. I think they're very contented with this idea of spending just $3 million for a right guard, $3 million for Mike Person. Take that $3 million. Tom Compton, come here, make $3 million and do the same thing. I'm wondering who the next $3 million right guard is going to be. Maybe it's Daniel Brunskill on a second-round tender, so maybe it's that situation. So, yeah, no, I think that it's going to be maybe get a little better center, but for the most part, we're going to see Trent Williams, Laken Tomlinson, different center, Daniel Brunskill, maybe Colton McKivitz and Mike.
And how they're going to sell it is it worked in 2019. Went to the Super Bowl. Jimmy played behind this offensive line. You can't overreact to one bad year. And that's how they'll sell it, whether it's truth or not. Mm-hmm. And if it's bad again and Jimmy gets hurt, they'll just say, oh, well, we tried. You wanted us to run it back. Now we'll make a change in 2022. Now we'll do something.
And I think the biggest thing, though, is that you're asking Kyle Shanahan to make a total philosophical change with how he's looked at O-linemen, what kind of O-lineman he values. And at this point where he is and what he's built, I think he looks at it as he has the right O-lineman to run the football and do that. And I don't think he would be ready to make that total philosophical change.
And the question is, do you see Kyle Shanahan making a total philosophical change about anything at this point in his life?
With the 49ers, I don't see it happening right now.
Neither. It seems to me he's a guy who's very sure of himself. I mean, this is a guy who still loves Kirk Cousins. I'm thinking, not that Kirk Cousins is bad, but this dude, this really sticks to an opinion. I mean, I'm all over the place. This dude's like, no. Kirk Cousins. I've been saying this since 2011. This guy's great. I like that about you, Kyle. Tommy says, do you think they are keeping Jimmy to drive up trade value?
No. I think they're keeping Jimmy because they need a quarterback in 2021 if they can't figure out how to upgrade. I think they're going to continue to do the flirty flirt with every single quarterback as they become available and as the market comes. And then I think in the 9th hour, in the 10th hour, when they realize, well, all right, crap, we did the flirty flirt with everybody. Everybody outbid us for everybody. All right, here, Jimmy, let's restructure you real quick and try to cut your cap down and go into this season. And our big move will be taking Kyle Trask or Kellen Mond or Mac Jones in the 2nd round. Or here's the other one. Here's the other one that I think the other big move is going to be the 2nd round pick for Sam Darnold. I think those are going to be the 2 big moves at quarterback, and they're going to keep it going with Jimmy G.
Right, so you're saying, because Kid Thrax is asking, are the Niners about to draft Kellen Mond or Kyle Trask? So you're saying, instead of actually doing some scouting and going out on a limb and taking one of these guys in round 2, the Niners will be like, well, why don't we just get a former top 3 pick with our number 2 pick? Boom, boom.
They're winning in terms of value there. number 3 to second round. I don't know. It's tough for me to look at a situation beyond that. And I know people have tossed around Matt Ryan. I'm not so sure that Matt Ryan is just going to say post June 1st. Let's say first he's expensive, and let's say Atlanta, after hiring Arthur Smith, which to me felt like a hire for Matt Ryan to try and maximize the last couple of years of Matt Ryan. Let's say everything goes south and they decide we're going to trade him, blah blah blah, all of that. I'm not so convinced Matt Ryan is just going to say that I want to go to San Francisco. I think Indy, if Matt Ryan came available, would be in the Matt Ryan market. I think Denver would be a team that would be in the Matt Ryan market. And, I would be more convinced if Matt Ryan didn't just kick Kyle Shanahan when he was down after the Super Bowl. It makes me wonder, if the relationship is as set in stone as people actually think. I mean, if Matt Ryan really loved Kyle Shanahan, he would have never thrown him under the bus after that Super Bowl. He would have stuck up for his guy. Instead, he saw that the media river was taking Kyle down with it, and he gave Kyle the extra push to keep going down with it.
Do you know how many years Arthur Smith signed for? Is it 5 or 6? Have they said?
I thought it was 5. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. All I'm saying is, here's how it plays out with Atlanta. Atlanta says they want Matthew Stafford. We like Matthew Stafford. We want to keep Matthew Stafford. Then they draft a quarterback with the 4th pick. We still want Matthew Stafford. We just also going to take a quarterback with the 4th pick because we love this guy. We also love Trey Lance or whoever, Justin Fields. Then Matt Ryan has a decision to make. Is he going to say, I'm 36, I'm running out of time? Like the Aaron Rodgers gripe. Like, you're not going to help me? You're going to draft my replacement and say, go. Like, we couldn't win last year. We stunk last year. We had the 4th pick, and you're not going to help me? Like, I'm out. Send me anywhere. Not necessarily the Niners. I just want out. And then the Niners can come in and see if they have the best offer. That's how I see this happening. Down the line.
We'll see, because I'm not 100% sure, just because I think that if they were looking to just give up with Matt Ryan and see what happens, I mean, we're really early in the process. Maybe it's different. I think they would have hired a guy who has experience running the entire thing and rebuilding something. Arthur Smith is a play caller. When you hire a play caller, it's usually because you think that your team already has talent and you have a quarterback and you're just looking for someone to come in and schematically maximize it. Kind of like the Rams. They built something. They didn't have anything. Sean McVay came in and gave them the X's and O's and the juice to get going right away. Well, if
the other problem with
Matt
Ryan, though, is financial.
Right.
He's got like a $40 million cap hit this year and a $43 million next year.
Right.
So keeping him means, you're saying you want to keep him because you want to contend because you brought in this guy, but you can't contend with him at that deal. So either you extend him and then you don't draft a quarterback, or you draft a quarterback and say, Matt,
that's going to be the $30 million question with about 5 different franchises this offseason. It's going to be
June 1. I can't wait. I cannot wait. It's going to be the best June. Real quick before we keep going on, David says, I think to win the Super Bowl, the Niners need a quarterback who can stand and deliver the deep outside ball, which we haven't had. Which available quarterbacks can do this?
Matthew Stafford.
He's not available.
Yeah.
He's saying you got to be able to throw. First of all, do we agree with his premise? Do you have to be able to throw the ball outside the numbers to win the Super Bowl?
Not always, but I think for the most part, the way the game is today, it's so spread out. And because teams are attacking the middle of the field, the evolution of defenses has now been take away RPOs, to try and take away crossing routes, really try and the best defenses when they shut down these high-powered offenses, it's because they play a lot of quarters, they play a lot of two-man, they play a lot of coverages with split safety that basically they force you. They say, we're going to give you the ball if you want to throw the ball on a 20-yard out. If you want to throw a 15-yard comeback, if you want to throw a just straight go ball,
speed out,
it's there for you. And a lot of teams aren't capitalizing on it. So I think there is something to that, but I don't think it's necessary per se. I still think you can win with a guy who's really smart and really competent in between the numbers. He just has to be capable of, when you have the one-on-one 2 times a game, be able to throw that ball when you need it.
For example, if you watch Kellen Mond, if you started to get into his film, he lives over the middle. He's got a quick release. He lives over the middle. Can he throw the ball outside the numbers? A little bit. It's not something he does very much, but he augments that with scrambling, running the ball. There's more to his skill set. Plus, he's experienced, doesn't turn the ball over very much. So he's not the total package, but he's a nice prospect who I think in a couple of years might become a decent starter. So, you don't have to have the big arm to be as successful. And Drew Brees didn't really have it. There are ways to do it. It's very helpful, though. You see it with Goff and Stafford. You're going to see it with Stafford. Goff has it. He can rip it. And what McVay does a lot is when people play cover 3, cover 4, you have these cornerbacks bailing out. I'll just take 8-yard out all day, 8-yard out all day. That's a nice thing you can do if you have Jimmy Garoppolo can't really do that. Can't just fire.
He's not willing to do it either.
No, because if you don't have the arm strength, it's a pick 6. Sorry. Good idea, though. All right, let's move on. Okay, so we've really been negative about Jimmy Garoppolo, but it's possible he's going to come back, and it's possible the Niners will go to the playoffs with him next season. Let's look at the glass half full if Jimmy Garoppolo were to come back.
Yeah, look. Ultimately, I think even if Jimmy Garoppolo comes back, yeah, it hurts. It's really tough to win a division when you got the 4th best quarterback in the division, as we have outlined before. But I do think there is something here.
Rams did it this year. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I do think there's something here where if Jimmy Garoppolo manages to stay healthy, big if, but if he does, the Niners can still easily be a 10-7 because now we're into the 17-game season, 11-6. Feels weird to say 10-7 and 11-6 instead of 10-6 and 11-5. But I think they could easily be one of those teams and be a wild card playoff team, maybe win a playoff game because their defense is only going to get better. You add Nick Bosa to any defense, it's going to get better. And, you lose Robert Saleh. I think that from a talent perspective, it's better. Maybe not as good. But
we got to see what happens that secondary. But yeah, you're right. It should be a good defense.
It
should be a good run game.
Got him. Yeah, bottom line, defense, run game should be good, and there's still enough there. There's still enough there with the Yak Bros to continue to have bootlegs and play action, a lot of short passes and stuff like that. And maybe he rediscovers himself where 3rd and 7 he drops back and he can make a couple plays here and there for you. We'll see because at some point we got to look at his headspace. This is 2 off seasons in a row where the Niners have kind of flirted with other quarterbacks. To me, last season he looked underconfident. That was his big thing.
I'm so tired of his headspace, man. First it was, is he still thinking about the ACL? And then it was,
I think he's just
thinking about the Super Bowl.
From that perspective, sometimes I feel like it's better for Jimmy to just say, I'm sick of you 49ers. You're not committing to me. Let me just go to a place that's going to commit to me. Sometimes I think of it that way. But let's say he stays. Let's say he's the quarterback of the 49ers. I still think that there's enough there, and he's still a solid enough player where they can easily be in contention to win 10 to 11 games and make the playoffs. No doubt about it.
Yeah, and so when I say they got to move off Jimmy Garoppolo because at 14.8% of the cap, they have 0% chance to win the Super Bowl, I believe that. But they can get back to the playoffs. And, you act like these franchises' goal is Super Bowl or bust every year. It's not. The Niners need a winning season. The Niners cannot afford another losing season. Kyle cannot afford. It's not like he would get fired, but you can't afford to have losing season number 4 out of 5. All of a sudden, you're going to lose a lot of allies, maybe power in the organization. Things are going to change. So bringing back Jimmy Garoppolo makes you feel like if he stays healthy, you're back in the playoffs. People are off your back for a year.
Yeah.
At least you got that.
Look, and we've poked fun at Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, you've poked fun at Jimmy Garoppolo. I've been critical of Jimmy Garoppolo.
That's what I do for a living, yeah.
Yeah, right. But the ultimate thing is that even though I don't believe quarterback wins are a stat, this is a guy who the 49ers have won with when he plays. There is something to that, even though it's not his stat, it's a team stat. And so for that reason, I do think that, it's not
it's
like
a magical mystery reason it works
right most
of the time.
And so for that reason, yeah, it's disappointing that the Rams just got rid of the number one thing that made you happy that you're not the Rams, and that's Jared Goff. And because of that, they got Matthew Stafford, who was my quarterback that I wanted. Yeah, that one hurts. Yeah, the Cardinals have this little super freak who's maybe the fastest player in the NFL, and he's got a rocket arm in Kyler Murray.
You call him a super freak. That's great because you have no idea what song that is. But anyway, keep going.
Oh, really?
You don't know about Rick
James. Yeah, he's incredible physically. Yeah, Seattle still is probably going to win 10 to 12 games with Russell Wilson, but the Niners can still do that with Garoppolo. They just probably have a ceiling.
Okay. So we've laid out why it's really not the end of the world if the Niners bring back Jimmy Garoppolo. They can sell it. It makes sense. It's kind of a very conservative move, but it's not necessarily dumb. But let's look at it the other way. If they bring this dude back and he gets hurt again or throws 15 picks again or basically just does the Jimmy stuff that the Niner fans and he have been kind of complaining about for years, does he get to keep using the Jimmy excuse? And I put that in all caps in the banner because we are now copywriting the phrase, the Jimmy excuse. It's always Jimmy's fault. It's never Kyle's fault. Bring him back year 5. Is it
No.
Does the Jimmy excuse still work?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. At some point, you know, he's rode the fence with Jimmy Garoppolo, right? He's rode the fence since 2018. It's always been Kyle Shanahan has his reservations. Week 4, we always get the report from the first NFL insider that, you know, Kyle Shanahan is not fully convinced with Jimmy Garoppolo. They could move on this offseason. Week 8, we get it again from the next NFL insider. Then we get it again.
Word on the street is Kyle has some reservations.
Yeah.
Really?
Wow. And then everybody posts it when they're watching film. Look at Kyle on this play. He put his hands up. Look, it's so adorable. Kyle Shanahan is being animated on the sideline with a negative connotation to his quarterback. Whoa, yay. As a fan, this makes me so happy.
It's just the proof we needed that Kyle doesn't like Jimmy. Everything about the 49ers is proof that Kyle doesn't like Jimmy. The way he calls his plays, the way he structures his offense, the things he says. I mean, you don't have to be freaking a super sleuth to figure that one out.
Right. And he's so honest and transparent with his feelings and his body language where you can see that even when somebody asks him a question to try and compliment Jimmy, and it's something he doesn't believe should be a compliment to Jimmy, he goes, no, I don't think. I think all our quarterbacks can do that. I think all our guys can do that. We coach our guys to do that and stuff like that. He always responds like that. It's never, yeah, Jimmy's pretty good at that. Yeah, Jimmy does a great job doing that. So because of that, I think he's rode the fence, and he's kind of gotten that excuse from people like, oh, look at what he's doing with Jimmy. But at some point, you know, after a while, it's got to be, if he sticks with Jimmy Garoppolo, well, it can't be no longer Jimmy Garoppolo's like the problem, because you've had opportunities to move off of him. You've stuck by him, and I don't know what's going on with Grant.
Some guy's really mad I didn't answer his question. Ask it again. You don't have to pay. I'll find it. Ace Boogie 76 says Jimmy scapegoat.
Yeah, he's been scapegoated, and you know there are problems with Jimmy. That's why we outline them and give Kyle the excuse. But you know, there's a different way that I think that this entire situation could have been covered and could have been perceived that could have been negative to Kyle Shanahan. And I think that it's been good that it's been positive to him because I'm a huge fan. I'm a Shannahan. So I'm very happy that.
We've talked about this before. In Washington, when the breakup happened between Shanahan and Robert Griffin, whose side of the McNabb? True. Let's focus with Griffin first, because I think there's a real carryover between him and Garoppolo. Whose side of the story got out in Washington?
Robert Griffin.
Whose side of the story gets out in San Francisco?
Kyle Shanahan.
What do you make of that?
I think that it's Kyle Shanahan understanding what happened to him in Washington and getting out in front of it a little bit.
Also, it's the different in the markets.
Yeah.
It's the Washington Post versus the Chronicle.
Right.
It's a very, very powerful media market over there. And the difference is when you don't have a powerful media market, you have a lot of people who are close with the team. Close with the team, not necessarily close with the players. See what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and ultimately, I don't want to hear that. You know, if they stick with Jimmy, I'm okay with it. I think they can win with it. But the last thing I want is week 4, you know, 49ers aren't sure. Kyle Shanahan thinks he can do it with any quarterback, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to see that report. I don't want to see him ride the fence. I want him to be fully committed. And the other thing I wanted to say is I think that it's great that he's passionate and he shows emotion on the sidelines and stuff. But that kind of jumping up and down and throwing his hands up, you know, I've been watching football for 15, 16 years. I'm 21 years old, and I've seen it be covered, that kind of thing be looked at as a very bad thing with head coaches, where you have these media people. And I always looked at it as, well, he's doing something in the heat of the moment. Of course, he's going to have a lash of emotion, but people are like, look at him. Is that leadership? He's jumping up and down. Does he have control of his emotions? People ask questions
if
like
Matt Patricia did that in Detroit, would people think that's cool? If Matt Nagy did that in Chicago, would people think that's cool?
People ask those questions of those coaches, and you know, I'm glad they're not asking those questions of Kyle Shanahan, because I think those questions in general are stupid. Because if you're passionate about something, you're stuck in the heat of moment, you're gonna have some sort of emotional lash out. And I hope you do, because to me, that shows that you're passionate. And unfortunately for Kyle Shanahan, that narrative and that type of coverage hasn't come out. But, I do think that it could be something that I think it's something he should be fortunate that hasn't happened to him. And ultimately, hopefully he doesn't ride the fence if he sticks with Jimmy Garoppolo.
If we're keeping Jimmy, do we go super backup quarterback? Fitzpatrick, Tyrod Taylor, Jameis Winston, Cam Newton, Sam Darnold?
Yeah, that's what I think is going to happen, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm actually not that excited in the super backup. I would like Kyle Trask or Kellen Mond. Pick one. I'd like them both, but I guess that would be kind of a super backup too. I mean, that's what Jim Harbaugh did when he became the Niners head coach. He rode the fence with Alex Smith. He's like, look, can I get a better quarterback than Alex? Are there better quarterbacks than Alex Smith? Sure. Am I going to get one this offseason? No. Let's bring this guy back, pump him up, draft a quarterback in round 2, see what happens. Maybe that's what the Niners do. Bring back Jimmy one more year, tell him we think you're great. Then we draft a quarterback in round 2 and just see how things shake out.
Yeah, but Alex Smith took a lot of heat in 2011. And 10-year-old, 11-year-old me would get angry because, you want to hear analysts that, at the time, their opinion was important to me. Now, when I fast forward, when I became like 17, 18, a little more mature, I could care less what they had to say. But when I'm 10, 11, what they said meant a lot to me. And you hear them always calling him check down Alex. Everything they say is so derogatory of him. Jim Harbaugh never had anything that come out that said anything besides that he loves Alex Smith and anything that wasn't positive about Alex Smith.
True, although I wonder if Alex is just too classy to ever take a shot at someone, even privately off the record. No, I think he just water under the bridge.
I'm talking about Jim Harbaugh because, Alex Smith handled himself with class. He never took a shot at Mike Singletary, who benched him for.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Mike Martz, who benched him for JT O'Sullivan.
That was disgusting. Goldblooded real quick says last 10 Super Bowl quarterbacks were Rodgers, Eli, Flacco, Wilson, Brady, Peyton, Foles, Mahomes. 3 were not top tier. Kyle needs to stop with the mediocre quarterbacks.
Even the 3 that you say aren't top tier, Flacco, I'm assuming are Flacco, Eli, Foles. They all played at an elite level for a 3-game stretch in a playoff run.
Big Golden Nugget says Jim always protected his players because he was a player and he understood. I feel like Kyle will protect his players to an extent, but ultimately he protects himself.
And it's a double-edged sword, right? He doesn't coddle his players, and I think that's something that was one of the more respected things about him, that he treats every single player like an adult, and he's really honest about it. And the other part of it is the fact that he's not going to sit and baby people in the media the way Sean McVay babied Jared Goff.
Right. But, maybe it was the kind of treatment that Matt Ryan needed. Maybe it's the kind of coaching that certain players need. Maybe it doesn't work as well with other coaches. I got one final topic I wanted to bring up with you. Why is Kyle Shanahan addicted to Kirk Cousins? What is it about Kirk? Is it that Kirk's so great, or is it the fact that Kyle and McVay are kind of competing for ownership of Kirk Cousins in their resume? Who developed that guy? And both of them kind of have an argument. McVay coached the dude when he played, and he played well. But Shanahan drafted him, and Shanahan developed him those first few years. I just kind of feel like Shanahan would be like killing 2 birds with one stone. You bring him back, it works out. I can finally say I developed a quarterback.
Okay. So
my quarterback.
So I think that I don't believe that. I think that it's actually a totally different thing. And first, 2 things. One, Sage Rosenfels, when he talked to Matt Mayoko, I listened to the full interview this morning when I was actually supposed to be in my ethics class. So
that's just not ethical. It's extremely unethical, and I'm not gonna tell anyone. It's okay. That would be unethical.
I appreciate that. But the point is, I was listening to it, and what I learned was basically that he said the reason they like Kirk Cousins is that they're confident that he'll do whatever they say. And I think that's the number one thing with Kirk Cousins that you got to talk about. And I think that's what Kyle Shanahan, I think it comes from a self-awareness, actually. I think he's sure that his style of coaching is not for every player because it's harsh, it's to the point, it's honest, and it's going to tell you what you're bad at. And not every player is ready to listen to what they're bad at. He knows Kirk Cousins can take that. Two,
it's another reason I think he avoids these first-round pick quarterbacks because they are not people who have been criticized much ever in their life. It's not something they're used to. Whereas a guy like Nick Mullins, he can take it. Kirk Cousins, he can take it. They got to where they are by
even Jimmy Garoppolo
seems to have a capacity to take it.
Yeah. And so the other thing, number two, is I think he's very confident that one, Kirk can digest his system. Two, he can keep up with everything he wants him to say and do. And three, it's Kirk might not do anything for him above the game plan, but he's confident in his game plan and he knows that Kirk is going to do what he wants within the game plan.
Also, on a much more basic level, he knows Kirk. Kirk knows him. Something to be said for that. People often gravitate to people they know. I mean, you could bring in Deshaun Watson. You don't really know Deshaun Watson. What if you guys work together for a month and Deshaun Watson decides he doesn't like you or you don't like him for some arbitrary reason? That's personal.
Yeah,
you like Kirk. That relationship works. You keep going back to it. Who did Robert Saleh bring with him to the Jets?
Michael
His
LaFleur.
best man's little brother, who's probably known since he was 12. I mean, you go with who you know.
And it's why people get angry. Well, why are coaches hiring the same exact coaches and retreads? Because they're comfortable with those people. And when you got to work the hours that these guys work, you want to at least work it with a person that you're really comfortable with. And so
and you trust.
It's comfortability and trust. And I think it's ultimately that with Kirk Cousins. He's confident that everything that he does, Kirk Cousins is already comfortable with and can do that. And that's why I think he's obsessed with Kirk Cousins.
But there is the added bonus that if he were to get Kirk Cousins and have success with him, then he could technically say that he developed Kirk Cousins, which is a box he can't really check right now. I mean, McVay's competing for that.
I don't think either of them care about the Kirk Cousins part of it right now because they're both pissed that they haven't gotten their Super Bowl yet, and that's
both worth about $100 million right now. So that's
right.
Probably beyond that part of that. Yeah, you're right.
I think they're both like look at McVay going after Stafford. They're both obsessed with the idea of getting that Super Bowl first.
Great point. And again, I think that's what's going on with McVay. He doesn't care about the future of the Rams. He cares about the future of his ring finger. Of his ring finger. He's trying to put some hardware on that ring finger now. And that's all he cares about. You know, if the Rams get a Super Bowl title too, great. That's great for them. But that's going in McVay's trophy case. As he moves on to Atlanta or wherever he feels like work. He's going to be in the league a long time. Well, who say he has to coach the Rams for 30 years?
No one. I mean,
great organization.
It's a tough job, right? Being in LA, that market, he can maybe go somewhere a little more low key and coach there for 30 years. A little more.
Maybe go to a tax-free state where they can get players in free agency as opposed to having to do this stuff where you have to give them anyway. Unless there's any more questions, we might wrap it up. We've taken a bunch of questions. When does Kyle's seat get hot? Let's finish with that one. When does Kyle's seat get hot? I think it's a legit question.
I think Kyle's seat gets hot in two ways. One, if they keep Jimmy Garoppolo and there's options to move off of him and they once again have a losing season, that's when I think people are going to start to look at him and say, look, 4 out of 5 seasons, losing seasons. You told us Jimmy was the problem, but you didn't move off of him. You had the opportunity. There was nothing if you cut him. And now we're stuck with Jimmy and you had another losing season. I think that's when people will start to look at him type of way. And then the other thing would be if he does go get that guy and then has a losing season. Because if he goes and gets whoever he wants and has a losing season, I think fans are going to be really upset from the standpoint of you told us Jimmy was the problem. You got rid of him. You went and got your guy and you couldn't win as much as you did with Jimmy. So I think this season, ultimately, Kyle's got to have a winning season.
Dad, let's make it real simple. His seat gets hot if he has anything other than a winning season next year. They don't fire him, but the hot seat means you're one step away. You're an 0-6 start. You're another losing season. You're whatever. One more bad move away from getting fired. I do agree if he has a losing season next year, he's on the hot seat. So I don't know if he approaches this offseason with the type of urgency that he's got to have a winning season. Maybe not because he just signed a 6-year extension. But if he has a losing season next year, you're going to see him make a bunch of win now moves like he did in 2019. They'll trade a pick for an edge rusher, kind of like D Ford, who may have some injury issues in his past, and this current team's a little reticent, but the Niners like, no, we want that guy. I don't care what his future is. I need to stay employed. That's how it seems like the Niners work. Just when you count out Kyle Shanahan, boom, he makes his move.
Yeah, and no, yeah, he wouldn't get fired, right? This is just about his seat getting hot.
seat.
But I think
Hot seat.
that next season, if they had a losing season, you would start to see some people question him, and you would start to see maybe some writers. And I know Grant Cohn will tweet it back on the hot
I'll put him
seat.
on the hot seat in 2018. I'll do it again.
Yeah.
I'll do it again. When he lost to Arizona the second time in 2018, I put him on the hot seat on Twitter, and I felt like I almost
off it.
I did take him off it.
What?
I think I took him off it after he started 8-0.
You're just turning off the hot seat.
He went 8-0 in 2019. I took him off it, and then ever since then, he hasn't been 8-0. See, so maybe I need to put him back. Maybe it's my fault.
Yeah, I think it's on you. You need to start taking responsibility for your actions as a coach.
Way too easy on the Niners the last year. I mean, it's time for me to roll up my sleeves and get back to doing what I do.
I agree.
All right, Vish. This was great, man. Thanks so much. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I can come on with you and Blake sometime soon.
Yes, definitely. We got to have you on. Thank you so much.
We got to talk Super Bowl and whatnots because that's coming down the pipe soon.
Definitely.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging with us for the new edition of Primetime Vish. See you guys later.